Hi everyone, I'm Gary Shapiro. During World War II, millions of Mexican men came to the U.S. through our government program to work in the fields. There was a shortage of American agriculture workers and they filled the gap. Their work was difficult, they faced racism and discrimination, but despite all that, many of them eventually became U.S. citizens, some living in Weld County. Today's Positively Colorado takes us to a museum in Greeley to tell their story. It's bittersweet. For years, Mexican workers have come to Colorado to pick sugar beets and other crops. Under one government-sponsored program, millions came to the U.S. to replace American farm workers who left to fight during World War II. They worked long hours in the fields for little money, with barely a roof over their heads. They were the Braceros, Spanish for manual laborer.
So at that time, they had one vision in mind, USA. Go up there, work, make some money, come back, go back, do it again.
Estela Nunez Franco's father was a Bracero, and his story and the stories of others like him is now being told at the Greeley History Museum in an exhibit called The Bittersweet Harvest, the Bracero Program.
I was shocked. I had no idea that he was part of history, and to him it was just work that he did when he was young.
It started with an executive order in 1942. The workers came to the U.S. from Mexico on short-term work contracts. Despite their important legal work, they faced discrimination. Many were sprayed with the insecticide DDT when they arrived. They were called derogatory names, and they were forced to apply for a U.S. ID card. They arrived with only a few pieces of clothing and often had to buy their own hats and gloves at inflated prices at local stores. These are the clothes worn by one Bracero, and Rihanna Trujillo's grandfather.
He went through discrimination and racism all his life, and he didn't talk about the bitter part. He was very positive, and that's the sweet part.
Thus the exhibit title, Bittersweet Harvest. They often faced horrible treatment. Still, they did the work. They grew the food, and their families tell us they loved what they were doing.
The Mexican-American community has contributed to this area in so many ways that we're not aware of, and not just in the fields, but in academia and the arts and in other domains.
Dr. Jeannie Canales is part of a group trying to educate Coloradans about the influence of Mexican Americans in the area. This exhibit is part of that mission. The Bracero program continued after the war until 1964. And that's when hundreds of Braceros began moving to Colorado, becoming U.S. citizens, and giving so much back to their communities. Bittersweet, for sure. With photographer Manny Sotelo, Gary Shapiro, 9 News.
The Bracero program was the basis of the legal work visa program that we know today. The exhibit in Greeley runs through March 11th.
And as always, if you have a story that's positively Colorado, send Gary an email at gary.shapiro@9news.com.